Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, and it is Thursday, September 22nd. I'm your host, John June, and this handsome, less handsome than me, but still handsome looking guy over here. That's my guy, Greg Penniman. Greg, what's good, bro?
What's going on, man? I'm ready for Thursday Night Football to start. And hopefully it can exceed my expectations of the game I want tonight. And yeah, looking forward to these week 3 matchups for sure. You got to bounce back. I'm sure a lot of people started want to know, got an L, so you want to bounce back and get back over 500.
Yeah, we week one was nice. Week one was really good
nice.
for me personally.
I felt like it was nice all around for like.
Yeah, it was nice. There was not a lot of drama, not a lot of injuries that happened outside of like maybe the Dak news and but we didn't lose any like key first round pick type of players. But
yeah,
even from a rankings perspective, week one was really nice to me. Week two,
yeah.
my rankings were terrible, so it was
week
bad.
2 was crazy.
Injuries,
performances, it was wild.
Yeah, it was a tough week for sure. But if you are here, then you know what time it is. It's time for us to talk about all those 1 p.m. games. Obviously we broke down Thursday Night Football yesterday. So if you could be watching us live, because we are live 4 times a week: YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Periscope. Twitter via Periscope. Or you can watch, or you could be listening to a podcast platform. That wouldn't be live, because we record this like right now, like 2 hours before or 3 hours before Sunday or Thursday Night Football rather. But maybe you're listening to this during Thursday Night Football, and you can listen to how Greg said that Cade York was going to be the MVP of the game, and right now he's probably kicking like a 63-yard field goal to win the game. Who knows? Or maybe we get the special teams touchdown that I predicted. I didn't say a team, so if either one of them gets it, then we're good. But yeah, just make sure however you are consuming this content, we genuinely appreciate it. But however you are consuming it, just make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But all that stuff is out of the way. Let's talk about some football, Greg. We're here to break down
Yes, sir.
These 1 p.m. games here. And let's start with the Detroit Lions, who are the 1-1 Detroit Lions.
There we go.
At home against this isn't right. That is totally not right, because those teams just played. So let me pivot real quick. Stay with me.
Guess Baltimore, New England.
Yeah, it should be Baltimore, New England, but we'll move on to this next one here, so I can get myself right over here behind the scenes. We're gonna start with the 2-0 Buffalo Bills, who are traveling to Miami to take on the 2-0 Miami Dolphins. This game has a 49.5 point total, where the Buffalo Bills are 5.5 point road favorites in this one. In terms of weather, there is some potential rain in this game, so be mindful of that. In terms of injuries, for Buffalo safeties Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, both DNPs on Wednesday. Micah Hyde with a neck, Jordan Poyer with a foot. Cornerback Dane Jackson, he was DNP with a neck injury, a scary neck injury in the Monday night game. Dawson Knox, he was a DNP on Wednesday with a foot, but he's trending in the right direction. Practiced today. And then Gabe Davis has practiced. He's questionable with that ankle injury that kept him out on Monday. For the Miami side, cornerback Xavier Howard, he was DNP Wednesday with a groin. He's questionable. Ced Wilson, wide receiver Cedric Wilson, he's questionable with a rib injury. Tight end Ethan Carter, he is DNP with a concussion. And then Teron Armstead is questionable. Greg, your thoughts on this matchup here?
I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Miami to cover, but I'm gonna take the Bills to win. I still close to feeling like the Bills. I always almost picked the Bills to cover as well, but I'm gonna think being on the road, Miami makes it a somewhat of a game. Buffalo's been looking like the best, clearly the best team in football the first 2 weeks of just defense, offensive wise. They're doing in both sides of the football, special teams. Uh, on the Miami side, I mean, Tua coming off his one of the best game of his career. I mean, he has this really tough matchup against his Buffalo Bills defense. I definitely wouldn't expect what he did last week. I'm tempering my expectations. I think he gives a borderline QB1 performance. As far as the skill positions, I think Jalen Waddle though and Tariq Hill are still must starts. And far as the running back situation, it's kind of tough. You want to see Chase Evans bounce back a little bit, especially with the usage he's getting. But I think with this Buffalo Bills defense, I think if you can find a better matchup for him and Mostert, you can probably play them. I'm not trying to get screwed in this matchup against the Buffalo Bills rush defense. And on the Buffalo Bills side, Josh Allen must start. Uh, Stephon Diggs, of course, must start as well. Just came off an epic week too. Um, and Gabe Davis, I think his flex value. Devin Singletary is the running back to roster right now and to start. I think he was also in that RB3, RB2 flex value.
Yeah. Now that I got myself situated over here, I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna take Buffalo to cover twice. Cover twice. I'm gonna take Buffalo to cover, cover twice. I'm not picking them to win by 11. I'm picking Buffalo to cover 5.5, and I'm taking Buffalo to win the game as well. I really did think about picking Miami. I didn't know if it was just because of what the game that we just watched and all this other stuff. The comeback against Baltimore, which I always used to say, like, if there's a team in the league that can score with Kansas City, it's
Yes,
Buffalo.
absolutely.
And based on what I saw yesterday or on Sunday, if there's a team that can score with Buffalo, it looks like it's Miami. So, but Buffalo is just so good, man. They've been so good since going even into last year. It's just hard to not pick Josh Allen to cover 5.5, but I could totally be wrong on this one. Tua has done that plenty. Both these quarterbacks have proven me wrong before. So, Josh Allen, think he's a QB1, of course. Stephon Diggs, he's balling right now. You got to have him in there as a wide receiver one. Gabe Davis, he's wide receiver 2, obviously, with the scintillating upside that we know he has. On the Miami side, I'm gonna play Tyreek Hill. I'm gonna play Jalen Waddle, but I will not play Tua. I don't like, at least not in redraft. I'm not going into this Buffalo secondary with Tua, and
Yeah,
expecting the 469 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, I'm not gonna do that to myself. But Raheem Mostert, he outtouched, Chase Edmonds, like you said. Like, could it be a tricky backfield week to week? I don't have much reason to believe that they made the change that they did without thinking that Raheem Mostert just outplayed Chase Edmonds in week 1. Because this is not a situation where one guy is the pass catcher, the other guy is the 2-down running back. This isn't a situation like Chase Edmonds is a good pass catcher. Like, we know that. If you're down in 2 minutes, like, and you're running your pass offense, like, Chase Edmonds is probably the guy you're going to want in there. But they were running Raheem Mostert, which leads me to believe that they liked what they saw out of Mostert in week 1. So I would play Mostert and I wouldn't start Edmonds. Edmonds would be wait and see mode for me. But Mostert, like, I think you could get away with flexing him, an RB3, flex option. Um, Dawson Knox, he's been non-existent in the red zone, and that's
banged
all
up too. Yeah,
he's banged up. But we talked about this in the preseason. He's not involved outside, he's not involved between the 20s. So he makes his money in the red zone, and he's not getting the red zone targets right now. and maybe those flip back in his way. But until he starts getting some of those to at least convert to touchdowns, there's no reason to play him. So I'm
Yeah,
not gonna recommend playing Dawson Knox. I mean, he is attached to Josh Allen. This could flip around, but until it does, I'm rather play the Logan Thomases. Irv Smith has a better matchup, things of that nature.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on to the next game, which is the first game we were supposed to cover, but it doesn't matter because all these games are at 1:00, so it's not like one game happens before the other, but OCD over here. The 1-1 Baltimore Ravens traveling to New England to take on the 1-1 New England Patriots. This game has a 42.5-point total, and the New England Patriots are 3-point home underdogs. In terms of weather, we're okay there. In terms of injuries, J.K. Dobbins, full participant with a knee for Baltimore. So he was worked out before the game on Sunday, was ruled out. So it's trending as if he might play, but I feel like every time I've said that about somebody on this show, they don't play. So J.K. Dobbins included. James Prochet, he's limited with a groin injury, the wide receiver. Isaiah Likely, the tight end, limited with a groin injury as well. Quarterback Lamar Jackson popped up on the injury report with a right elbow. He was limited, so definitely something to keep eye on there. Marlon Humphrey, DNP with a groin. Devin Duvernay, DNP with a concussion. For New England, Jacoby Myers was DNP on Wednesday with a knee injury. Kyle Duggar was also a DNP on Wednesday with a knee injury. And then they have a bunch of other guys questionable. So these are all things to watch for as we get closer to game time. But in terms of the game, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take Baltimore to cover. I'm going to take Baltimore to win. On the Baltimore side, Lamar has got to be QB1. Mark Andrews, a tight end 1. Rashad Bateman, he's made his money off big plays, which that's not really sustainable in my opinion. But he's a nice wide receiver 3 flex option. So you could put him in your lineup, but I just say that to say the production he's been putting up, you look at the box score, you're like, oh, 70-something receiving yards and a touchdown, or 60-something receiving yards and a touchdown. It's like those happen on one play, and then that's really his box. That's the rest of his day. So it's tough to really depend on him for anything outside of just the big playability. But for New England, and I'm waiting to see mode on J.K. Dobbins. For New England, I like the it's so crazy to say this. I like the passing game this week. Not gonna totally invest in it, but I think Jacoby Myers, he's an option especially in PPR leagues. He's got a massive target share, so Baltimore's been beat by wide receivers, so he's definitely an option. Nelson Aguilar, I think he has also some upside, and then Damien Harris was banged up in the game on Sunday, but didn't show up on the injury report. So it seems like he's the running back to play until we get further notice there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over. I'm gonna take Baltimore to cover and Baltimore to win. I do think Baltimore just shows that they're the better team in this matchup down the stretch. On the Baltimore side, starting Lamar Jackson as a QB1 automatically. And then as far as the running game, I'm still not yet really ready to trust anyone yet, even if J.K. Dobbins plays, to see his usage to start. So I'm gonna avoid the rush game for now. Rashad Bateman, the matchup is good for him, so I think I'll bump him into that low end wide receiver 2 territory. And so that's him being the number 1 wide receiver right now for the Ravens. Mark Andrews, automatic tight end 1. On the Patriots side, Damien Harris bounced back pretty well last week, so I think he's in that running back 2 territory. And I do agree with you with the receivers. If I'm playing some of them, it's going to be Jacoby Myers, then Nelson Aguilar, then not playing Devontae Parker right now, but I could trust Jacoby Myers.
Sorry, you said Devontae Parker, and I had to stop the vomit from exiting my mouth. So,
revenge game, yo. Oh no, not revenge game. Not yet.
no,
Oh,
no,
he already
not
had.
yet. He
Did he
already
say
had
it?
it. It
Yeah,
didn't
he already
matter.
had it and didn't do anything. Yeah,
No,
we didn't. We
it
didn't
didn't
mention
matter.
it.
It's not worth it. Anyway, moving on to this next game. The 1-1 New Orleans Saints travel to Carolina to take on the 0-2 Carolina Panthers. This game has a 40.5-point total. Carolina Panthers are 3-point underdogs at home. Weather's okay in this game. In terms of injuries, corner for Carolina, Dante Jackson, he's limited with a hamstring. For New Orleans, Marcus May, the safety, limited with a rib injury. Wide receiver Deontay Hardy, limited with a foot. Tight end, quarterback / Mr. Do Everything except for score points in my fantasy lineup when I start him. Taysom Hill, limited with the rib injury. that was just a joke. And then wide receiver Traquan Smith, he's limited with a shoulder injury.
Didn't even
know he was still on the roster. Actually, that's a lie. I knew, but is he relevant? Not really. But not everyone gets left out of the injury report. We don't discriminate here. So, except for New England, because everyone's on the injury report, and then it doesn't really count. But Greg, your analysis on the game, what do you got?
Taking that under, taking the Saints to cover, Saints to win. This game is feeling very ugly, smells pretty ugly, so it's going to be, I think, a low-scoring game. As far as the Saints side, if Kamara's coming back and playing, if he's questionable right now, truly questionable again. I think if he goes, I think you're playing him. I do like the matchup. I still think he'll be in that borderline RB1 territory for this matchup. And for the receiving game, Michael Thomas has been doing well. Him and Jarvis Landry are both playable, very fantasy relevant. So I have Michael Thomas as a wide receiver too. Jarvis Landry has a good flex value option. And on Carolina side, I mean, they both are just going to dominate the targets. Juwan Johnson as well. Again, we bring his name up, liking his target share at the tight end position. So he's not going to kill you if you are desperate for a tight end. And on Carolina side, CMC and Robbie Anderson right now. I mean, DJ Moore did get that touchdown last week, but last 2 games only getting 3 receptions. Definitely playing into my wide receiver bust of the year argument here. But yeah, I'm going to play Robbie Anderson. I got some flex value right now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's something weird about this game. I'm getting some vibes. I'm gonna go with
some scores, some scoring. Okay,
slight over, a slight over, not too crazy. But I'm also gonna go with Carolina to cover and win.
Okay,
I think Carolina gets their first win. It's against a divisional opponent. It's at home. Yeah, this one, I don't know. Like my head's telling me to pick New Orleans. My heart is telling me something's. I gotta.
Yeah, New Orleans quarterbacks are in. I mean, Taysom Hill could do something special, get them over the hump.
Definitely.
I don't know. We'll see.
But in this game, if Carolina's gonna win, it's got to be on the back of a CMC week. Popped up on the injury report today, but I don't think it's anything serious. But you get nervous anytime CMC ends up on the injury report. Again, I'm not in love with this pass game, but if I had to, I'm with you. I would lean Robbie slightly over DJ Moore. I mean, the target share did even up a little bit last week. But they're both really wide receiver 3s at best. Mm-hmm. For New Orleans, gonna treat Michael Thomas as a high-end wide receiver 2. And I didn't hear. Did you talk about Chris Olave?
I did not.
I think he's close, man, to a breakout. Had a big game last week. I think it was 5 receptions, 70 or 80 yards. He actually is the league leader through 2 weeks in air yards, 372 of them to be exact. And based on that, has 0 touchdown receptions. Based on his air yardage total, should have somewhere closer to 2. So, I'm expecting, a little bit of a mini breakout here for Chris Olave. Okay. Jarvis Landry, he's obviously still been involved, but like I said, I think in week 1, I think Chris Olave has probably the longer up, the higher upside, being, the first round draft pick and things like that nature, and just his skill set and how it matches up with Jameis. But Alvin Kamara, not on the injury report, so hoping he can go. If not, then Mark Ingram should be a decent play.
Yeah, I mean, definitely hoping. This game is not really like I'm not hype about it, so let me just stop.
Yeah, Greg doesn't have a lot of Carolina pieces, I can tell.
No,
Carolina or New Orleans, you don't have a lot
no.
of stock.
Yeah, there's some Jameis. I do like me some Jameis. I'm a big
Yeah, no, James.
yeah.
I got quite
Empty,
a bit of
empty.
empty stock.
Uh-huh.
Quite a bit of empty stock.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Like
I
it.
got like my one share CMC outside of best ball, so I'm a little interested in this game. Let's move on into this next matchup. I know you're interested in this one, Greg.
Oh yeah, I don't even have any Patty, and I'm just every week I'm locked in. Patty.
So Sunday 1 o'clock, we got the 2-0 Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Indianapolis to take on the winless 0-1-1 Indianapolis Colts. This game has a 49.5-point total. Sorry, I just started laughing. The Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites. The reason I was laughing was because I thought about how funny it is that Colts are winless through 2
Yeah,
weeks, and they've played the Texans and the Jacks.
brutal. That AFC South. I thought it was
It's
gonna be
so
like
weird. It's
I
so
know.
weird. Um, But in terms of this game here, this game is in a dome, so that's beautiful. Shaq Leonard, full participant in practice with a back injury. Will he play? I have no idea. I said last week that he would, and the week before that he would because he was practicing, but I guess he's not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just see when the inactives come out at 11 o'clock. Alec Pierce, concussion. He's a full participant. Defensive end, Yannick Ngakoue. He for the Colts, him and DeForest Buckner, they're both questionable. Michael Pittman Jr. limited with a quad that kept him out last week, so seems like he is trending in a better direction. And then for Kansas City, Mecole Hardman, he was limited with a or heel injury, and then Harrison Butker was a DNP with that ankle, still highly questionable for this game. For me, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take Kansas City to cover. I'm going to take Kansas City to win. Indianapolis, granted, it's been 2 weeks. The Texans, I know the Jags are a better team than they were last year. The Texans, I'm still trying to figure them out. So the Colts, I'm just, right now in my book, you guys are a bad football team until you prove that you are not a bad football team. So bad football teams they don't cover
They don't
6.5 point
cover.
spreads. So I'm going to take Kansas City to cover 6.5. For Indy, JT they need to remind KC that they should have taken him instead of CEH. So he needs to have one of those games. If Indy does want to win this game, if they do intend to win this game, it's got to be on the back of Jonathan Taylor. So, load him up. He's in your lineups, no questions asked. Michael Pittman Jr., if he plays, he should pick up right where he left off. Ashton Doolin, super interesting to me. I've been paying attention to him in deep dynasty leagues for a while, but this was a nice performance by him, one that I didn't even know that was he would do in his first start, but expect him to expand on that for sure. And then Naheem Hines, he should be more involved this week as well, especially if they're banged up at receiver like they were last week. And then for KC, Mahomes is a top 5 play. Kelsey, tight end 1 option. Juju is the wide receiver that I want to play. Probably is a wide receiver 3 flex option. CEH, I'm like, if I could, and you know me, Greg, I've been saying, hey, CEH, but it's literally because it was about the volume that he's getting, and really it was about the Chiefs being a favorable game script all the time. But right now, if you were ever going to sell CEH, right now is the time.
Yeah.
Sell CEH. You talked about it last week with the waivers too, Jerick McKinnon still involved. I'm still going to play CEH. If I have both of them, I'm playing CEH, right? There's no questions asked. I have to play Clyde. But I would try to, if I could try to find a way to flip Clyde into DeAndre Swift, I would do that in a heartbeat. So I think that is really it. Jerick McKinnon, yeah, he's a stash or a desperation flex, but that's really it.
Yeah, there's no way that DeAndre Swift manager will give you DeAndre Swift for CEH for sure.
Probably not, but if they are hurting,
They are
right? All right,
hurting.
I know a deal you might be able to get done. And I'll ask you if you would do it. Would you give up? Would you turn CEH into Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I guess it's good buy low. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think if I could turn
yeah,
CEH into like Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook.
yeah. Maybe like Dalvin Cook. I think the Titans are gonna be bad this year too. Speak about bad teams. So
So you're not buying Derrick Henry, is what you're saying?
if he's not gonna be in competitive games, like all these great years by him have been in competitive games. So I think if he's gonna be a bad team, then I don't know. Might be more RB2 territory. Whew, whew.
Ugh. All right, Greg.
The game
The game. What say you?
under. Taking the under, taking the Chiefs to cover, Chiefs to win. On the Kansas City Chiefs side, you already know Pat Mahomes, Patty, 7 touchdowns through the first 2 games. I mean, that's my man's on pace for 60 touchdowns. Like, I mean, obviously not gonna get that, but that's what he's on. That's what he's doing right now. I agree with you with the Clyde assessment with Jared McKinnon. I'm seeing Clyde as an RB2 option. Jared McKinnon as a desperation flex if you're really hurting for depth right now at the RB position. Travis Kelsey, tight end one option. I'm not a fan of really any of the receivers because you don't know who is going to be right now. I think you can find other matchups and play like Jahan Dotson or something like that to start of any of these receivers or something like that. On the Indy side, JT, of course, looking at him, he's still got 40 carries through the first 2 weeks. The volume's still going to be there. Uh, and Michael Pittman, if he's back, you're starting him as a wide receiver one. And Ashton Dulin, yeah, definitely a bump, especially if Michael Pittman's not going again. But even without him, he's definitely the wide receiver two in this offense. So he's got some flex value.
Yeah, the wide. That's a good point on wide receivers. It's tough to pick one. I mean, I said
Yeah,
preseason Miko is the one I want, and I don't know. He's been the most consistent through 2 weeks, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't like you said. I don't know if it's really worth it. It's like, how
yeah.
do you not take a
Not
wide
worth it.
receiver? Like, there's wide receivers out there on the Chiefs, running routes, catching passes, getting targets, and we don't want them.
It's
It's
just too
crazy to me.
balanced. It's just too balanced.
It's crazy. All right, moving on to this next game. This one should be an exciting one.
Ooh, yes, sir.
The 1-1 Detroit Lions traveled to Minnesota to take on the 1-1 Minnesota Vikings. This game has a 53.5 point total, where the Minnesota Vikings are 7-point home favorites. A lot of points for a team that just got smacked up on Monday Night Football. This game is in a dome, so no weather concerns in terms of injuries. DeAndre Swift for the Lions, he was a DNP Wednesday with an ankle, but head coach Dan Campbell said he's doing much better than he was at this time last week. So that's got to be great news because that man still went off and barely
Facts.
played. So
Facts. I'm like, word? He feels better? Oh, man, that's scary. That's spooky season right there.
oh yeah. And then for the staying with Detroit, TJ Hawkinson limited with a hip, Aiden Hutchinson DNP with a thigh injury, defensive end John Kaminsky, he was a DNP with a wrist. For Minnesota, safety Harrison Smith was DNP with a concussion, and then cornerback Andrew Booth Jr. is questionable. Greg, what do you got in this matchup?
I'm here for all the points. I'm gonna take the over. The reason why, Minnesota's, getting blessed right now is because they're still playing Detroit. Like, they still uh don't have a very good defense at the end of the day. Taking Detroit to cover though, and I'm taking Detroit to win. Uh yeah, I mean on the Detroit side, I mentioned Jared Goff. He's my quarterback stream of the week. I think he's in a great favorable position right here. He's got 6 touchdown passes through his first through 2 games. DeAndre Swift, we just talked about that spooky season. If he's feeling better, off the year he's already having. Close, he got 200 rushing yards already. Again, starting off definitely with his best pure rushing numbers effort right now. So that's scary. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver one season continues. Lock that man in for those 8 receptions. Like hopefully again, I believe that he's going to continue his tear in a favorable matchup. And T.J. Hawkinson, low end tight end one value. You got it. Hopefully this is maybe a breakout game for him. And then on Minnesota side, Kirk Cousins, I love his matchup as well against Detroit. So start him up. I think he's one night on prime time, and he's gonna deliver a QB1 performance. Dalvin Cook bounces back. I think it's a bounce back for the entire Minnesota offense. Justin Jefferson as well, and Irv Smith Jr. Tight end that I think is a very streamable play right now. I'm able trying to pick him up in leagues and start him for sure. Him as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take Detroit to cover. I'm taking Minnesota to win, though. It's not in prime time, so I'm not afraid of Kirk.
True.
But Detroit would not be. I would like. There's never a week that goes it. Like we go into a week, and I'm like, I would be surprised if Detroit wins this game. Like they'd have to play like Mahomes. Like
they're in every game.
They're in every single game. Dan Campbell coaches that team hard. Coaches them well.
He's about to cry after every game. It feels like this man is all the emotions that they puts him through and throughout a game.
I mean, just based off Hard Knocks alone, like I should have been backing this team more. But I have not backed. I mean, do you think we look at the state of the Packers? We look at the state. The Minnesota. Obviously, they're in flux. The Bears are terrible.
Oh yeah.
Do you think Detroit could win the North?
Yo, that would be crazy. When I was thinking about it after week 1, I'm like, oh, Minnesota definitely is gonna win this division. But after what happened, I mean, it's prime time though. Like
Philly's on a roll though too. Like I think I think the last
Philly
2 weeks. Yeah, Philly's for real.
Yeah, and it's not prime time. These games that Minnesota will have. So I still think Minnesota is gonna edge out this division. Yeah, that's what I think. But I think Detroit's not finishing last. I think the Bears are gonna finish last.
Yeah, the Bears are definitely gonna finish last. They might be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they might be. Them or Atlanta.
At least Atlanta fights too.
Yeah, they fight.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, prognostication on the game. I'm gonna take the over. Taking Detroit, taking Minnesota to cover. Or sorry, taking Detroit to cover, Minnesota to win. On the Detroit side, like we said last week, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's matchup proof at this point. You play him. DeAndre Swift, top 5 play. Jamal Williams, he's gonna keep stealing those red zone opportunities. So he's a flex play. Hawkins, man. Seriously, that's how I feel. It's like, I mean, Greg, you tell me, because I know you have TJ Hawkinson. How do you feel when you set your lineup and you be like, all right, tight end, TJ Hawkinson? What are the feelings that makes you? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't feel like he's like a lock. I don't feel like I have an advantage at that position right now, currently.
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel. I don't really roster him, but it was just, when we're talking, I just remember, obviously we were talking week 1. I was like, yeah. Week 2, I was like, all right, let's play him. And then he didn't do anything. So now I'm like, I don't want to play him anymore. So, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you got to play him. Same thing with, I have faith in Kyle Pitts, but TJ, you got to play Kyle. You got to play TJ Hawkinson. Like, you got to play him. For Minnesota, definitely. Oh, yeah. No, Jared Goff, your stream of the week. I think he's in a smash spot. I think this is a great spot for him. Minnesota, definitely expect Justin Jefferson to bounce back. Kirk Cousins, I think he bounces back as well. I think we see Dalvin Cook get a little squeaky wheel game here. We had 20 carries, 25 opportunities in week 1, saw just 12 in week 2, which included 6 rush attempts, which is way too low for a running back of Dalvin Cook's caliber. I don't care what the score was. So I think Dalvin Cook gets the ball a little bit more. And I'm not playing Adam Thielen, not in redraft. Not gonna do it. I was.
Yeah, I mean,
You didn't mention him, and I, yeah, it's tough to want to play him. Uh, may have and then Irv Smith. I think he has a good matchup here. Um, think we may have lost Greg. It's definitely possible. Um, but we'll move on to the next game here. The 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Washington to take on the 1-1 Washington Commanders. This game has a 50.5-point total, where the Philadelphia Eagles are 4-point road favorites. In terms of weather, we're okay, and there's no weather concerns in this game. In terms of injuries, linebacker Hassan Reddick, he's limited with a knee injury. Cornerback Avonte Maddox, he's questionable with a back injury, limited participant in practice. Wide receiver Quez Watkins, DNP with an illness. And then on the Washington side, defensive tackle Daniel Wise, he was a DNP on Wednesday. And then there's a bunch of other guys that are questionable. In terms of the game here, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to cover. And I'm also going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win. I mean, just what we saw on Monday night. I mean, week one, it was that they were playing week one, they were playing Detroit. So obviously when that game kind of shoots out, you're like, oh well, I kind of expected it to shoot out the way that it did. And then when Greg's back,
yes, sir. Back
it's
like
cool. Back like you never left, bro. We was sitting in here. I was holding it down, just didn't even give my picks. Or I did give my picks. I think I gave the over, Philly to cover, Philly to win. I was just talking about Monday night and Jalen Hurts's, his performance. I was getting into it, how they played Detroit week one, and when that game ends the way that it does, we walk away not giving too much respect to Detroit, but maybe disrespecting Philadelphia a little bit, talking about, how do you let a team like Detroit come back like that? I'd picked against them to, in the Monday night game against Minnesota, but Jalen Hurts, I want to make sure what I'm going to say it's not controversial or a hot take. But Jalen Hurts on Monday looked as good as any quarterback in the league has looked going back through like last year. Like, granted, it's one game, but in that one game, he looked as unstoppable as the Josh Allens, as the Patrick Mahomeses, and the Lamar Jacksons. Like, there was nothing you could do to stop Jalen Hurts that day. I mean, he was rolling I forget what the pass completion percentages were, but it's like he didn't have a ball hit the ground for like his first like 7 or 9 passes, something like that. And then obviously 2 rushing touchdowns. The guy's he's a man. So Jalen Hurts on the Philly side, Jalen Hurts is QB1 for me this week. AJ Brown, wide receiver 1. Devontae Smith had a bounce back game. Wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. Probably just straight up wide receiver 2, honestly, in this matchup, in this game with this total. And then Dallas Goedert, love him this week. I think he's in a really, really good spot. Start of the week type potential right here for Dallas Goedert. On the Washington side, Carson Wentz, revenge game, borderline QB1 for me this week. Curtis Samuel, can't believe I'm about to say the words I'm about to say. Curtis Samuel, probably the guy that I want to play in this offense. Not giving up on Terry by any means, but if I had them both on my team, like there's no way that I could not put Curtis Samuel in my lineup ahead of Terry, just based on what's happened through 2 weeks and the utilization and the targets and the red zone work that Curtis Samuel gets. Less intrigued by Jahan Dotson this week. I just like a lot of the volume, a lot of the work he's been getting has been touchdown dependent. Not a lot of it, but he scored what 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks. That's not sustainable. He can't keep doing that. So you could play him, but I'm not expecting the upside that we've seen the last 2 weeks. And then Logan Thomas, I think, definitely a solid play at tight end.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Washington to cover, and I'm take Philly to win. I do think Philly continues to roll here. They're gonna show that they are one of the better teams in the NFL, but I can't see Carson Wentz in a revenge game not covering at home. So he's gonna keep it close. On the Philadelphia side, yeah, I'm with you on Jalen Hurts. I mean, I love Jalen Hurts. Even when Carson Wentz was the starter of Philly, I felt like he should have, gotten his chance a little earlier. And yeah, he's proving it right now, doing what he's got to do. QB1 performance here, as usual. Miles Sanders having one of his best starts of his career. So I think he's in that high in RB2 territory right now. AJ Brown continue to put him out there as a wide receiver one, and Dallas Goedert as well in a great matchup. Definitely tight end one level. On Washington side, agree with you again. Continuing, uh, Carson Wentz is still, I think, in QB1 territory. He's got 7 touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. He's definitely out here getting his attempts up, 87 attempts in the first 2 weeks as well. So you like that number for a QB1. Antonio Gibson, RB2 territory, mid-tier, solid territory, has room for up more with his passing game usage. And yeah, I'm playing Curtis Samuel without a doubt. Definitely strong wide receiver two, and Terry McLaurin wide receiver two territory as well. Jahan Dotson, I mentioned his name before. I mean, I'll take him over those Chiefs receivers in this matchup, high total, and just I think just he's proven through the first 2 weeks that he can get some touchdown upside.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely looking for him in the red zone. Carson Wentz is when they get down there. He scored 3 times down there in 2 weeks, so he's definitely involved there. Moving on to this next game. The 0-2 Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Tennessee to take on the 0-2 Tennessee Titans. This game has a 41.5-point total, where the Las Vegas Raiders are 2.5-point road favorites in this one. In terms of weather, we're okay. In terms of injuries, Hunter Renfrow, he's questionable with a concussion. Running back Brandon Bolden, questionable. Linebacker Denzel Perriman, safety Trayvon Morig, center Andre James are all also questionable. For Tennessee, Kyle Phillips, he's questionable with a shoulder. Wide receiver Traylon Burks, he's limited with an ankle. Running back Dontrell Hilliard, limited with a hamstring. And then cornerback Chris Jackson, along with running back Trenton Cannon, were both added to the injured reserve list. Greg, what do you got in this matchup?
I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna take Vegas to cover and the Vegas Raiders to win. Um, yeah, I think Tennessee's just not gonna be a good team this year. They just don't have someone to really, stretch the field offensively outside on the perimeter. And Traylon Burks is gonna take some time. He had a better game last week, but I think you just need a difference maker right now. And yeah, people are just gonna load the box and be ready for Henry. So on the Vegas side, I like Derek Carr being thinks has QB1 upside in this one. Josh Jacobs, again, like his matchup, I think he's a strong RB2. Devontae Adams is in the smash spot here. Should finish in the top 3 for sure this week. And Darren Waller as well, top tight end option. On the other side, the only one I'm looking at is Derrick Henry as the RB2, and Jalen Burks, I think, can give you some flex value in some deeper leagues.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I think Tennessee covers. I think Tennessee wins. Um, Derek Carr, borderline quarterback 1. Devontae Adams, a wide receiver 1. Josh Jacobs is a volume-based RB2. I mean, the volume is good. He's getting good work. Had 19 carries last week. Didn't come through as my start of the week. But he's just not doing much with it. So based on that, he's a volume-based RB2. Darren Waller, he's a tight end 1. Mac Hollins should see more targets if Hunter Renfrow is out. Had 6 targets in the first half of last week's game. For Tennessee, yeah, it's really just all about Derrick Henry for me. Although, like you said, you brought up Traylon Burks. I think he's someone that at the wide receiver position, if you missed out on a spark on if you need some spark or you missed out on Garrett Wilson, running waivers, um, he's close to popping soon. I mean, the thing that led me to Drake London was that the Atlanta wide receiver depth chart is terrible. And they used a first round draft pick, high draft pick, the eighth overall pick to draft Drake London. Tennessee, they got rid of AJ Brown. They draft Traylon Burks with the 16th pick in the draft. That wide receiver depth chart consists of Robert Woods coming off an ACL, Nick Westbrook-Akine. They called Josh Gordon up from the practice squad the other day. Cody Hollister, Kyle Phillips, who's like a 5th round pick. So yeah, Traylon Burks is definitely somebody I'm interested in. Somebody that should be on rosters, should be stashed on your bench. Like I said, he's close to popping soon. I think he had 50 yards in week 1, 47 in week 2. So he's hovering around that 50 mark. If he gets more playing time, more opportunities, more targets, and this is a guy that can do it not just as a pass catcher, but in the run game as well. They can get him involved in some jet sweeps. He's got the freakish athleticism of an AJ Brown. That's not hyperbole. I'm not, gassing it at all anyway. Like, this guy has that kind of ability. It's just about, putting it together and being the phenomenal wide receiver that AJ Brown has become. So anything else you want to add on this matchup, Greg, before we move on to this next one that's less exciting?
No, yeah. Hopefully we see a vintage Derrick Henry running this though for sure.
I think we do.
So
the next matchup here, the 0-1-1 Houston Texans traveling to Chicago to take on the 1-1 Chicago Bears. This game has a 40.5 point total. There is potential rain in this game.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of injuries for Chicago, tight end Ryan Griffin, he's DNP with an Achilles. Linebacker Traquan Smith was DNP with a hip. Wide receiver Velus Jones, DNP with a hamstring. For Houston, Kamu Grugier-Hill, the linebacker, limited with a neck injury. Tight end Brevin Jordan was a DNP with an ankle. They have a few other guys questionable. In this game here, I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take Houston to cover, and I'm going to take Houston to win. In terms of the game, it's really simple. David Montgomery for Chicago. Then that's it. And then on the Houston side, it'll be Brandon Cooks. And Damien Pierce was like had 100% of the team's rush attempts last week in a game against Denver, which was obviously a large shift from the week before when Rex Burkhead was the leading toucher at the running back position. So if Damien Pierce in a game where I think the Texans win, he can play. We obviously saw that run defense get a little tore up the other day. I mean, he's no Aaron Jones, I know that, but Chicago can be run on. So I think Damien Pierce is definitely in play as a RB3 with RB2 type upside if you can get in the end zone here. And then and the defenses. I'd play the defenses, and then that's it.
For sure. Chicago stream of the week, your stream of the week, Houston. So there you go. Would you play Damien Pierce or Zeke?
Man, that's tough. I have to say Zeke. I feel like I just feel like I have to.
Where you were still with Damien Pierce.
Yeah. No, I have to play Zeke. We talk about the Dallas game tomorrow, so maybe I'll come up with some different insight. But right now, I have to say Zeke.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Houston to cover as well. I'm gonna take Houston to win. I'm with you in analysis. is pretty easy.
Little
Oh, we
boxes
got
from
some.
Twitch is saying, hopefully this is going to be Pierce's coming out party. I'm with you. Hopefully.
Hopefully, Chicago's defense that they get torched. And they would have got torched in week 1 as well if it wasn't a monsoon. But yeah, Dave Montgomery for Chicago, RB2, and for Houston, Brandon Cooks bounce back week. Nice matchup here. The only other person I would consider is Darnell Mooney, only because of the target should be back in this one. Easier matchup. Um, Wide receiver
Darnell
2.
Mooney's got to prove it to me, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play him in DFS, but just in redraft, like he got to prove it to me.
Yeah,
My man had
for sure.
negative receiving yards. Negative receiving yards.
So bad.
Little Boxes is also saying you should consider Fairbairn the kicker for the Texans. Lots of field goals, minimal touchdowns. So smart way of thinking there. Little Boxes.
Oh, we got a K York situation here, but get some kickers involved, man. Hey, man, they're important for fantasy
Hey, I
too.
mean, this game is in Chicago. There's potential rain, so I don't know. Maybe the kicking game is not the best, but
Me
Greg, did you have
personally,
any?
just take kickers out of fantasy,
Nah, man, they're people too. Greg, anything else you want to add on this game, or have we spent too much time talking about it already?
Yeah, no, we're over. We're
We're
way
over
over.
the time. I
Way
think
over.
so. Way over, right? Okay. Speaking of overs, we have the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals traveling to MetLife to take on the 1-1. Haven't said that
Hmm.
in a very long time. New York Jets. This game has a 45.5 point total, where the Cincinnati Bengals are 4.5 point road favorites. In terms of the weather, this game is okay. In terms of injuries, tight end for Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst, he's limited with a groin. Tight end Drew Sample, limited with he's out with a knee injury, actually. Um, Offensive tackle Lyle Collins, he's questionable. Linebacker Jermaine Pratt, he is also questionable. For the Jets, safety Jordan Whitehead, limited with a calf. George Fant, the left tackle, he's questionable. John Franklin Myers, defensive lineman, questionable with a quad and a toe. And then CJ Uzama, the tight end, revenge game narrative, limited with a hamstring. Greg, what do you got in this matchup here?
I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna take the Jets to cover, but I'm gonna take the Bengals to win. Um, Yeah, Cincinnati. Hopefully, this is they get right game, but they still have some struggles. So I think the Jets can cover in this game. Joe Burrow, I'm hoping that this is a QB1 week for him. He's still getting the passing yards up there, but still got the 4 interceptions. But yeah, I'm gonna go with him as a QB1. The pass attempts are still really high. Joe Mixon is a RB1. Jamar Chase, you're starting him as well. Must start, and T Higgins as well. Good to see him back off that concussion, playing well. And as far as Hayden Hurst, another maybe desperate tight end option, especially in a high passing volume right now. He's still involved a little bit. On the Jet side, Michael Carter and Brees Hall, I think they're both playable. I think Michael Carter is in that strong RB2 territory. Brees Hall is in RB3 with some RB2 upside. Corey Davis, I like his matchup this week as well. I've been a guy, we talked about on the waiver wire. I think has some wide receiver 3 value, flex conversation, and Jared Wilson, Elijah Moore, those 2 receivers with the passing volume. If they're going to be in a competitive game, I think it won't be as crazy it was last week, but I think both of them are involved. Um, I want to see if they can be able to all both eat in the game together. That's probably what I'm intrigued about. I do like Elijah Moore and matchup in this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the over. I'm taking the Jets to cover. And while I am taking Cincinnati to win the game, I disagree with your assessment where you hope that this team turns it around. I don't hope that they turn it around. I hope they go 0-3 this week, especially this week. Go 0-3. mainly because I would like the Jets to go 2-1. But
Right.
anyway, in terms of the game here for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, a quarterback one. There's actually a really good matchup for him. The problem is he's been dealing with pass rush,
The O
so
line is
it's
not
bad.
good. Yeah.
So if he can get the ball down the field, Joe Burrow could be a QB1 in this game. Joe Mixon, think he's an RB1. I mean, the Jets, Nick Chubb is still running for touchdowns right now. So Joe Mixon, definitely an RB1 play. Jamar Chase, a wide receiver 1. T. Higgins, wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Hayden Hurst, if he can go, tight end 1 option. And then for the Jets at running back, think both Michael Carter and Breece Hall are involved. That they're both like low end RB2, maybe even RB3 flex options. They cannibalize each other in their work. I mean, week 1 it was all Michael Carter, but then week 2 Michael Carter doesn't get 9 receptions and then doesn't get 100 yards from scrimmage. So it was a down week for him, and then Breece Hall scores a touchdown, so he ends up having the better week. So it could be like that for a little bit, but I think Breece Hall is so if I'm playing DFS, I'm probably willing to play Breece Hall, even though he is slightly more expensive than
This
Michael Carter.
big Javante Melvin Gordon energy right here.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is this is how
the
it's gonna be.
discount bootleg version of the Javante Melvin Gordon. But anyway, yeah, Breece Hall is definitely close to breaking some big runs. For Garrett, on the wide receivers, on the Jets side, Garrett Wilson. Hopefully, you listened last week when we were breaking down the Jets game, and I said to stash him. I said it, stash him. Got to be on your bench because then you don't have to spend fab. It's beautiful. But you totally play him this week. He leads the Jets in targets with 22. He's also 9th amongst wide receivers in targets through 2 weeks. I mean, again, this is a rookie, so you start him. I think he's wide receiver 2 flex option just based on the volume and a game with a high total. Corey Davis has some intrigue as well. Leads this team in ADOT. So he's going to be a target available to Joe Flacco down the field. And then Elijah Moore, like you said, the matchup is good. The production hasn't been there, but the routes have been there. The snaps have been there. He's just not getting the target volume. Like if you give Elijah Moore Garrett Wilson's target volume, like we would be okay with this, but he's not getting that. I think it does flip, but it's hard for me to put him in my lineup right now, based on what he's done the last 2 weeks. But I would not be surprised if, like you said, based on he does have a good matchup this week, if he does have a good game. And then, again, it's not like Joe Flacco doesn't like throwing to Elijah Moore.
Tyler Conklin too.
Yeah, Tyler Conklin has volume.
Yeah.
Look, this is the most that I could like. I think this is the most I've
Crazy.
said about the Jets in
some
one segment than we have in like a year. So
Yeah.
this is absurd. This is crazy
They
because
keep passing like this, and
we highlighted every offensive skill group, and there's multiple players at each offensive skill group, save for tight end that you would want to play. So like it's crazy. Anyway, it's not like Elijah Moore wasn't catching passes from Joe Flacco last year when he was
the Mike White era. We did have some a lot of talking points for them.
No, but it was like still concentrated. It was concentrated. It was like Michael Carter,
true.
Elijah Moore. Like right now,
True.
you could literally said you could play 3 receivers on the Jets in the same game with 2 running backs. It's crazy.
In the show.
Yeah. That's the show. That's it. Just end it.
That's
Hit
crazy.
The credits. But yeah, I got nothing else to add to this one, Greg. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think it's pretty good.
All right, y'all. So y'all know what it is. This is the end of us breaking down these 1 p.m. games. So make sure you tap on Saturday, because that's when we're going to break down the rest of the games, starts of the week, all that good stuff. Play some Get Money. Have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.
Yeah.